Your Ben Joravsky Show for Wednesday, April 7th is just moments away. But before we do this, let's thank our sponsors. Sponsors like SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana. The Chicago Federation of Labor sponsors, as well as the Chicago Reader. ChicagoReader.com for all things there is to know the city of Chicago, where to go, what to do, what to eat, what to drink. Just so many questions. If you're a clueless Chicagoan, get a clue. Chicago Reader, ChicagoReader.com, subscribe, and ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky, J-O-R-A, V as in victory, S-K-Y. There you will find our endless archive of Ben Joravsky shows, almost to 1,000 episodes, guys. We're getting there. Wow, I know, right?
It's just unbelievable. I was talking to Dave Glowacz about it on the phone. I go, it's just unbelievable. Wow. D, I love talking.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. Yes, you do.
I just love talking. I love talking to people. I'm not just going to be walking down the street talking to myself, though I've been known to do that. Okay, I've been known to do that. Yeah, I'm going to let that cat out of the bag. But I love talking to people. And it's out of nowhere. I got an offer from a radio station to come talk. Okay, they fired me, but still it was nice of them to give me the offer. And now I have the podcast. I just get to talk to people. See? Sorry for that tangent.
ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky for an endless archive of Ben Joravsky shows. And you can become a Ben head. What is a Ben head, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. It's a way that you can support the Ben Joravsky Show. ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky. You can either join the Avenue, the Alley, or the Boulevard. Subscribe. Check out ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky for all things the Chicago Reader and the Ben Joravsky Show. The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. It is Wednesday, April 7th, and live from my apartment and his attic, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, Mr. City Council. Oh my God. David Glowacz. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist. Oh my God. Ben Joravsky.
Yeah, hello everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this MAGA for Dummies Wednesday. And here's why. Woke up this morning with a strange desire. I wanted to be a MAGA man. Don't know where it came from. When I went to bed, I was the same old commie, hippie, lefty, boomer guy, Ben. Hi. But when I woke up, I want to be MAGA, just like Donnie Trump Jr. and Congressman Matt Gaetz. Just let me interrupt this flow. I already got a fundraising solicitation from Matt Gaetz. I got to give this kid credit, D. We can learn something from him, okay? I want you to study him. Guy's already sending out fundraising solicitations. He got caught in a very embarrassing situation, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Gaetz, congressman from Florida. Turns out he may have been soliciting sex from a girl, really, underage. And so he's flipping it. Gotta give him credit. He's like flipping it because they're persecuting me because of my MAGA beliefs. Send me money. Anyway, that's what I did. I woke up this morning and I wanted to be like Matt Gaetz. But it's hard because all these talking points contradict themselves. So you utter one as though it's a rock solid, anchored in stone principle, only to violate it in the next breath with another rock solid, anchored in stone principle that completely contradicts the first one. What we need is a manual, MAGA for dummies. I'll give you an example. Number 1. ID cards, the rock solid principles that all MAGA men subscribe to. I said we absolutely must have state ID cards to be able to vote. And not any old card will do. So Dennis, don't show up with your Subway service sandwich card, the one where if you get the 10 little punches, you get a free Subway sandwich.
Yeah.
Sir, your tuna melt will now get you 6 sandwiches. You're 4 away.
Yeah, that ended like 20 years ago, so don't worry.
Don't come back with your Blockbuster card. I know you still have that old Blockbuster card, D.
Also,
like to show it around.
Ended about 20 years ago. But yeah, go ahead.
Every now and then it's like, he'll go up, Ben, I'm not saying I'm important or anything, but take a look at this. He takes out of his wallet a Blockbuster video card. I'm like, whoa. No, that won't do. Can't show the old Blockbuster video card. And you can't use that little sticker, that little card you get from Dunkin' Donuts. The bagel races, can't, that won't go either. Has to be a state-issued ID. Again, issued by the state, preferably a MAGA-run state. But then, when it comes to ID cards that's saying you've been vaccinated, like the so-called passports you're supposed to have when you get on an airplane, no, it's an intrusion by the radical left on our daily rights. Just like a card that says you must have this card to buy this gun. Radical left alert, radical left alert. That's the alarm for the radical left. Look out, radical left, they're taking our rights. They're making us signed up for the National Registrar. They know who we are, where we live. Quick, give me money now. Oh, it's so confusing. So, which is good? ID good when you're voting, ID bad when you want to get in an airplane. Okay. Then we get to the second confusing issue about MAGA, law enforcement. As a MAGA man, I've been warned that radical lefties, like Illinois' Governor J.B. Pritzker, are trying to take away our God-given, most treasured right, which is not to wear a mask. So MAGA law enforcement officers are proclaiming they will not, under any circumstances, enforce Governor J.B. Pritzker's mask rules. Just read about this today in The Bright One, by the way, an article by Alan Sullender, Andrew Sullender, my bad. Shout out to him. He's a downstate resident, I guess, or downstate native, and he sort of covers the downstate beat for the Sun-Times, does a great job. He has an article in today's Bright One, D, Super Spreader Bar Unmasked, Downstate Villa Grove. Just want to make a little technicality. I checked it out on the map, and Villa Grove is technically a central state. Just saying. Danny Mahopoulos gave me grief for that, making that mistake. Remember that, D? I said, Chris Miller's from downstate. He goes, Ben, it's actually central Illinois. Get it right, okay? All right. Anyway, Villa Grove establishment is behind a super spreader event. They did not require anybody to wear a mask. The name of the bar is Embarrassed. You ever been to Embarrassed, D, in Villa Grove?
I'm embarrassed to say I have. No, I've never been.
Have you ever been to Villa Grove?
I don't think so.
Oh, I mean, I've never been to Villa Grove.
I feel like there's a lot of places called Villa Grove for some reason. That's...
You know what? It was funny when I saw the story. I thought, oh, it's a suburban like DuPage County, but no, it's about 200 miles south of Chicago, 160 miles south of Chicago. Anyway, the bar owner did not enforce mask rules. There was just an event. A bunch of people have gotten sick. I'll read you from Andrew Sullender's article in the Sun-Times. The February 5th event at the bar led to 46 residents contracting COVID-19 and the closure of the town school system of more than 650 students 11 days later, according to a CDC report released Monday. You know it must have been bad if they closed the school system because they want to keep those schools open no matter what. I wonder what Lori Lightfoot's position on that would be. Keep those schools open. Of those infected by spread of the coronavirus at the indoor event with no outside airflow were 26 patrons, 3 staff members, and 17 secondary cases among individuals who didn't attend the event. 5 school-age children, 2 student athletes, and 2 residents of a long-term care facility, one of whom was briefly hospitalized, were among that latter group. 4 of those infected had COVID-19-like symptoms the day they attended the event. Wow. So people with COVID went to the event, no mask, breathing in each other's face, and there was a super spreader. Contagion throughout the town that's just pretty much shut it down. Now, as Sullender points out, this central state community, I should say, is represented by a Sheriff Joshua Blackwell, who made headlines for refusing to enforce any of J.B. Pritzker's rules. He's not going to do it. He's just not going to enforce the rule. And this is what Sheriff Blackwell said. If Pritzker wants to come out with guidelines, that's great. But as far as law enforcement standpoint, we're not going to enforce it. I'm especially not going to make my employees wear masks. They've all been offered masks, and if they want to wear them, they can, but I am not going to mandate it unless they are dealing with someone who specifically has COVID-19. Of course, you don't really know who has COVID-19. It's, again, you can't have ID that says you've been vaccinated. You don't put a sign around yourself saying I got COVID. So it's like kind of weird. It's like, it's really, how is a law enforcement officer going to know? You going to stop every person? Oh, sir, do you have COVID-19? If so, I'll put my mask on. Anyway, he said he's not going to enforce the laws of the state. So sorry, some laws are just too much of an intrusion to have to enforce. That's the MAGA rule. But wait, now we have a new law in Georgia. You can't pass out water bottles to people waiting in line to vote, because that would be somehow or other an inducement to vote. So confusing. My dear friend Willie Wilson, former mayoral candidate and one of Chicago's leading Republicans, was passing out $100 bills. Remember that, D? to people who showed up at, what was it, like voting polls and stuff. I supported, I defended Willie Wilson, even though he's a Republican. I defended him. And MAGA defended him too. So he's just trying to help people out. So let me get this straight. It's okay for a Republican like Willie Wilson to give out $100 bills, but giving a guy a bottle of water in the heat is the road to ruin. And what's the Joshua Blackwells of Georgia, sheriffs like Joshua Blackwell of Georgia, supposed to do? Is it anti-liberty to lock someone up for breaking the law when they don't wear a mask? But passing out a water bottle? Get in that cell, son. And by the way, do you have to arrest the guy who takes the bottle of water as well as the guy who gives it? Do they have to confiscate the water? I'm sorry, sir. We have to take your water bottle as evidence. But I'm tasty. That's my Eddie Murphy, old man in the barbershop imitation for Coming to America. Want to hear it again, D? Okay, if you insist.
Yeah, it sounded like, but I'm toasty? What?
But I'm tasty.
Oh, okay. I see. An old guy thirsty.
Yeah. It's the old guy. The old guy who, for some reason, in Coming to America, the two did not get invited to the wedding. Just saying. You could have invited him to the wedding, too.
Come on.
He didn't get invited. Everybody else in the barbershop got invited to the wedding.
He was
when the prince got married down in whatever country it is.
He was
Just saying,
toasty.
they didn't invite the old guy, huh?
He's toasty.
He's toasty. God, it's confusing to be a MAGA man. There's one more confusion. MAGA's outraged. Outraged, I tell you, that Democrats call anti-voting laws in Georgia and in Texas Jim Crow. Mitch McConnell, Governors Brian Kemp, Greg Abbott have all said it's insulting to compare these laws to the horrific Jim Crow laws of the past. But wait, now MAGA's telling me that Jim Crow is bad? Wasn't that long ago that MAGA was telling me that Jim Crow was sort of good? Remember? It was all about defending state rights, MAGA? Standing up for your Southern heritage, MAGA? I thought there was no such thing as systemic racism. That's what MAGA was telling me just a little while ago. I thought it was anti-American to take down Confederate statues and change the names of bases from Confederate soldiers. I thought those Confederate soldiers were war heroes too. That's what MAGA was saying just a little while ago. So hard to keep up with MAGA's ever-changing rules. That's why we need a helpful guide. Yes, MAGA for Dummies. For all the dummies who are MAGA. We got a great show today, everybody. The legendary, the immortal, Dave Glowacz, the man, the myth, the legend, who popularized bike riding in the city of Chicago. Before Dave Glowacz, nobody rode a bike. After Dave Glowacz, everybody rode a bike.
It's true.
Ring.
It's true.
Now, fake news. And now he's going to be here for our monthly feature on the Ben Joravsky Show, one of our more popular features, where he breaks down the city council meeting that took place just prior to whenever we're doing the show, this particular show, and then plays clips for me to riff on. And he never tells me what he's going to play. Well, he did tell me that there would be one clip from my favorite orator in the Chicago City Council, Alderman Raymond Lopez, 15th Ward. So that's all I know, ladies and gentlemen. He's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve. We're going to take a brief break, and we're going to bring on the great Dave Glowacz with the City Council Roundup when we return.
And now, the list of things that you can buy at the Chicago Reader store at chicagoreader.com.
Things to wear like Chicago Reader hats, t-shirts, bandanas, and face masks. Things for your daily life like the Chicago Reader camping mug, Chicago Reader tote bags, and a Chicago Reader reporter's notebook. Things for you to read like our reader recipes, the Chicago Reader 420 companion, our Chicago Reader best of book series from journalists Maya Dukmasova, Mike Sula, Ben Jarofsky, and Leor Galil, the Chicago Reader coloring book, and the Chicago Reader Stay Home puzzle. Find the Chicago Reader store at chicagoreader.com and show your support for the nation's first free weekly newspaper since 1971.
I'm sick of it. Every year we give power to one person.
I know you're sick of it. Welcome back to the Ben Jarofsky Show, live from my apartment in his attic.
That man who's sick of it, of course, is Michael Bose, who back then was a state rep from Central Illinois, downstate Illinois. I'm all confused. Where's Danny Bialopoulos when I need him? But he's since gone on to Congress, and he's not sick of anything anymore. He was sick of Michael Madigan. Republicans are sick of Michael Madigan. They were against tyrants. But when it came to Donald Trump, they loved tyrants. Very interesting. Again, the theme of the day. You got these shifting talking points from MAGA. It's hard to keep up. By the way, before I bring on the immortal, the legendary Dave Glowacz, I just want to say thank you to the folks at the Hideout. The virtual First Tuesday we did yesterday was quite a show. Anjanette Young and Shapiro Wells were guests, Maya and my guests. I don't know if any of you folks heard it. And really powerful testimony from Shapiro Wells. She's been on the show. She talks about her investigation into the murder of her son and the obstacles she's faced. It's a very upsetting story. Her son was shot about 4 years ago, and then he went to police for help to take him to a hospital, and for some reason they put him in handcuffs. He ended up dying. And of course, Anjanette Young, she was in the news a lot about 3 or 4 months ago. She's a resident from the West Side, and police had a no-knock warrant, and they burst into her house. I think she had just stepped out of the shower, and she was naked. They put her in handcuffs, and it turns out they had the wrong address. So very compelling testimony from Anjanette Young and Shapiro Wells. And we have a recording of that show, and we will drop it on this podcast on Sunday. So if you missed it last night, you can hear it this Sunday. Very compelling stories from Anjanette Young and Shapiro Wells. I want to thank them for coming on our show. All right, the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Weber High School. He smiles as I say that. Yes, it was many years ago, but he's still a Weberite. Dave Glowacz, welcome back, young man.
It's great to be here, and I'm always happy to be here and grateful to you guys for having me. And, Weber High School used to be a Catholic boys' school. It's now a Chicago Public Schools grade school.
I was aware of that. I believe it's one of the few junior highs in the city.
They call it middle school. That's not a name you normally see in CPS.
That is correct.
Suburban kind of nomenclature.
Yes.
I went by there the other day. It looks pretty good. They took some of the, religious artifacts off the facade, but otherwise it looks.
Well, I hope so. It's a public school now. We want to keep the religious artifacts up. It's a public school.
Well, some of it's like in the masonry, so that's
Oh, that's a little more little more challenging.
Yeah.
All right. So Dave Glowacz, Inside Chicago Government, and once a month he comes on the show. Very popular feature, very popular segment. With diehard Chicago politics fans, really takes the deep dive, get to know our aldermen, our city council, our mayor, how politics works in the city of Chicago. I think this should be a syndicated show nationally. Chicago just is, you could so much about how democracy works in the United States of America by studying the Chicago City Council. So without further ado, Dave Glowacz, take it away.
I think the word syndicate really is an appropriate term when talking about Chicago City Council. However, we'll leave that conversation for another day. I'm going to talk today about the full City Council meeting that took place on March 24. Okay. And this was a 5-hour meeting, which is a little longer than they usually go. And I think that were some aldermen who are ready, very ready to be done at the end. Dennis, we're going to do demo first. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the report by the City Council Finance Committee, which occurred near the beginning of the meeting, and the committee reported on its approval of a 1-year building demolition surcharge pilot program in 2 neighborhoods, one in Pilsen and the other in Logan Square near the Bloomingdale Trail, which some call the 606. And if you're keeping score, this is Ordinance 02021-746. This ordinance, which did pass, I'll give that preview, is intended to combat gentrification by making it costlier for owners of multi-unit buildings to convert them to high-priced single-family homes, and for owners of existing single-family homes to make McMansions out of them. And this grew out of a 6-month pause on demolitions near the Bloomingdale Trail that the council approved actually in 2020. And what we're going to hear now is some discussion about the ordinance, and we'll start with Finance Committee Chair, 32nd Ward Alderman Scott Wagaspak. And let's listen.
Item number 2 is a communication authorizing a proposed amendment to Municipal Code Chapter 2-44, imposing a build and demolition surcharge tax pilot program until April 1st, 2022 in the Pilsen and 606 Trail neighborhoods.
The chair recognizes Alderman Lopez.
I rise in opposition to this ordinance. I understand my colleagues' concerns about fighting gentrification, but in many of those neighborhoods, the gentrification has already happened. I oppose this because we're not looking at where gentrification could happen. I also oppose this because what we are doing is not just impacting developers, we are impacting and quite literally stealing the equity from those families that stayed in these communities, that were part of Logan Square when it was not the hip place to be, that were in Pilsen when there were more gangbangers on a corner than there were tours and tour buses. Those individuals are being robbed of the equity should they choose to now use their vehicle for personal wealth, their property, to generate funds for their family, to create generational wealth for their future. That is wrong.
The chair recognizes Alderman Beal.
I don't think this issue is going to pass legal muster. I don't believe that you can have a carve out in one part of the city and raise fines and fees or permit fees in just certain areas.
The chair recognizes Alderman LaSpada.
I'm incredibly grateful that we did get here with the collaboration of the administration, with months and months with law, Department of Housing, DPD, the buildings department. We've worked tirelessly to make sure not only that this will pass legal muster, but making sure when a 2 and 3 flat is sold, that it is sold as a 2 and 3 flat to someone who hopefully has the wherewithal and interest, and from our city, the incentives for maintaining that as relatively affordable housing in our community.
There were some more comments by aldermen, and if listeners want to hear those, they could go to the Inside Chicago Government podcast episode on this March 24 meeting. So Ben, that passed 37-12, which wasn't a sweep by any means. And we heard a couple objections. One that was fairly interesting to me was Alderman Beal of the Southside's 9th Ward said that he thought it wouldn't pass legal muster. Yet we heard Alderman LaSpada of the 1st Ward say that, we did our due diligence with the law department, Department of Housing, et cetera. And we think it's pretty, it's cool. So, it's always interesting to me to think about how much collaboration or consensus building the advocates of a particular proposal have made, to potential opponents. And another thing that it leads me to is thinking about how in this era of video conference meetings, that kind of thing might get done where people are in the same room at city council chamber, they can walk around and say, hey, what are your objections to this? Unless they pick up the phone now and do that, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, by the way, I read the paper that Lori Lightfoot will be bringing back the old-fashioned city council meetings, so they'll be able to walk around and cough in each other's faces as much as they want and exchange. Unless
they pass that ordinance, which got proposed a while back, where they prevent them from talking to each other.
Yes, don't talk. But it was a fascinating bit that you played. Thank you for playing it. Ray Lopez, Alderman Ray Lopez from the 15th Ward, giving his people-like defense of free markets in real estate. And then Anthony Beale of the 9th Ward finding his inner constitutional scholar as he opines on the legalities of the measure. I always love when aldermen raise up the legal muster thing. It won't pass. Well, anything you pass that irritates somebody will be challenged. So then you're not going to pass anything. Well, someone's going to file suit. And my experience as a constitutional lawyer, even though I am not a constitutional lawyer, is that it will not pass. There's no legal muster. By the way, is legal muster what you put on a hot dog? Sorry. Anyway.
Well, we know that ketchup is illegal in Chicago on a hot dog.
But when I was listening to Raylo, all kidding aside, ladies and gentlemen, when I was listening to Raylo, Alderman Raymond Lopez of the 15th Ward, I had a smile on my face because Alderman Lopez, whether you realize it or not, you're transforming yourself into one of my favorite aldermen, Bert Nateris. May he rest in peace. Bert Nateris was the alderman of the 42nd Ward in the Gold Coast for many, many years. He was defeated. Let's see if Dave Boas knows this. He was defeated in what year and by who? David
I can say most certainly that I do not know.
Brendan Riley defeated Bert Nateris, and I believe the year was 2007. Don't quote me. But anyway, Brendan Riley defeated Bert Nateris, and they said, oh, he's embarrassing us. He's a clown. He's a buffoon. And all those rich people on the Gold Coast said, yes, right. We're embarrassed by Bert Nateris. But one thing Bert Nateris did, they had no appreciation, all those rich people on the Gold Coast, because Bert Nateris articulated every opportunity he got, like this universal notion that private property rights trumped everything else in the universe, and that any law that the city of Chicago imposed that would limit the ability of somebody to do whatever they want with their private property was like the first step toward, I don't know, totalitarianism, communism, Soviet Russia. And he would always say, socialism first. And he was one, Bert Nateris, of the Bernie Stone School, that began pretty much any sentence in a conversation with me with, Ben, what you don't understand is, may he rest in peace. We had many arguments, but this is one of his pet peeves. So Raylo is following on in a great tradition of city council orders, rising to defend the private property rights of ordinary citizens in Logan Square. And the notion embedded in it is that somehow or other, if you limit the ability of a buyer to do whatever he wants with the property he wants to buy, you're going to limit the amount he will pay the seller. I'm not even sure that's true, by the way.
The more, you call it the sort of the free market perspective, the more community-based argument behind Ray Lopez's argument is that it deprives the seller of the ability to cash in.
That's what I just got finished saying.
Well,
so
in an area that's, well, let's tease this out. In an area where property values are increasing, if you make it harder for that seller to sell it to somebody who wants to pay a lot because they know they can convert it to something they can sell a lot.
Well, that's exactly what I was
on their ability to get wealth.
That's exactly what I was saying. And so that's the argument, that if in any way you put an impediment on what the buyer is going to do with that property, you lower the amount of money the seller can get for selling that property. And that is an infringement on private property rights and is the first step on the road to ruin. That was the Bert Nateris argument, and I'm listening to it, and I'm hearing Raylo make the same argument. And my reaction to Ray Lopez is my reaction I had to Bert Nateris. I actually put this to Bert Nateris. I said, then would you allow for toxic waste dumps in any neighborhood? Somebody might be able to sell his property to be converted into a toxic waste dump. He get a lot of money for it, conceivably. Would you eliminate it? Are you against all zoning? And then Bert Nateris told me, don't be a wise guy, Ben. which is, I presume, what Ray Lowe would say. But at some point, by the way, I don't even buy the principle. I'm not even sure how certain it is in real estate, Dave Glowacz. You actually know quite a bit about real estate, but I'm not sure that in every single instance you will automatically get more money from a person who's flipping your property, as opposed, in other words, buying it merely to tear it down, build something else there and then sell it. Or if he wants to sell it, build the Taj Mahal McMansion of his dreams. I don't know if you will automatically get more money. I don't know if that's ever been tested anywhere.
Nothing's automatic, but it's the law of supply and demand. People want to live in desirable areas, and they're going to pay more for it.
I understand. No, I understand that people will want to live in desirable areas and will pay more money for an area that's desirable. What I'm saying, I do not know if this has been demonstrated across the board that a homeowner who sells his property to a developer who's going to immediately tear it down and build something else there, flip it, in other words, will get more money than a homeowner who just sells to an ordinary buyer who wants to move into the house anyway. So I don't know if that's
if the developer is developing a McMansion that goes for a very high price, then yes, they're going to make a lot more money. But I should point out that
no, that's not necessarily true, because the developer has to take into account the amount of money it's going to cost him to buy the land if he's going to flip it. This is the same. You can't have it two ways in the city of Chicago. So when you're underwriting a TIF deal and you say, well, we want to minimize, to make it more affordable to the developer, the cost of developing it, so we're going to subsidize his acquisition price. Then you can't flip it around and say, well, the homeowner could get so much more money by selling it to the developer who's going to flip it. I'm going, no, that developer is going to have an incentive to keep the acquisition price lower, because he's got to do whatever he can to keep his ultimate cost of his property when he puts it on the market lower, so he makes more money.
And let me identify the actual additional cost this ordinance provides for. It's for someone who is selling their home in this area, and if a developer, if it sells it to a developer, and a developer files plans such that they're going to tear it down, what that will cost the developer is $15,000 if it's a single family home. And if it's a multi-unit dwelling, it'll cost the developer $5,000 per unit. So if they're going to sell the thing for, say, $500,000, that might be a drop in the bucket. And that is in fact what some of the aldermen who are in favor of this proposal but feel it doesn't go far enough say, that's just, a pittance. There, coincidentally, is the next thing we're going to listen to is all about this restriction around zoning. Shall we go to that one? You look pensive, like you want to, there's more you want to say about this.
No, I'm looking, no, this is my looking out the window thinking about what you're saying, like. This is I'm looking and thinking, and I notice I'm stroking my chin. I've had
record, folks, he is stroking his chin.
And I'm waiting for the train to come by. This is by the way, one of my favorite topics. I have to say, and again, all improv. Dave Glowacz did not tell me we're going to have this conversation, because I've been having this discussion / debate / argument with people 30 years. Because it gets into the whole issue of like the city taking property in eminent domain cases for development, saying there's a best and higher use for it that trumps the person's private property rights to hold on to his property. I remember having this argument with the illustrious Bert Nateris.
So you're going to love this one then. Dennis, we're going to do zoning next. This one came out of, this clip we're going to hear now came out of the report of the City Council's Zoning Committee, which had passed before this meeting a set of new zoning regulations to address environmental concerns for developments in what's called planned manufacturing districts. These areas where the city used to sort of protect the neighborhood from residential, let's call it encroachment, so to preserve manufacturing businesses and jobs. But those are sort of starting to go by the wayside. For example, what is now known as Lincoln Yards on the north side is formerly in a planned manufacturing district. So this ordinance, which for those keeping score is SO 2020-4590, was actually introduced in the autumn of 2020. And it was stimulated in part by the much advertised move of a recycler, a scrap iron recycler called General Iron, from the aforementioned Lincoln Yards area, the North Branch of the Chicago River, to the far south side. And we'll start with the Zoning Committee Chair, 44th Ward Alderman, Tom Tunney. Let's listen.
A text amendment of Municipal Code Title 17 regarding requirements associated with manufacturing in planned manufacturing districts.
The chair recognizes Alderman Ramirez Rosa.
I'm disappointed that this does not have the support of any environmental group.
The chair recognizes Alderman LaSpada.
I would similarly like to be recorded as a no vote.
The chair recognizes Alderman Jeanette Taylor.
I'd like to be recorded as a no as well.
The chair recognizes Alderman Rodriguez Sanchez.
In solidarity with all of the environmental groups that did not sign on or supported this ordinance, and with the recognition that we could have done much better, I am a no.
The chair recognizes Alderman Harrison.
I also would like to be registered as voting no.
The chair recognizes Alderman Sadlowski Garza.
When this ordinance was first introduced, every development went to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The environmental groups signed on to that because they felt that it was a community process, but the large recycling facility that has been in my ward for 29 years, when they wanted to merge with the recycling facility from the north end, it was sent to the ZBA for a special use permit. My community showed up to that ZBA and no one listened. Nobody on that ZBA listened. And here we are 3 years later with all hell breaking loose because of the recycling facility that's coming to my ward. So the ZBA was not the answer. We found a compromise. And when people talk about not meeting with the environmental groups, in the 6 years that I've been in office, I had my chief of staff pull my calendar. I've met with these folks 91 times. The issues that are in this ordinance, the air quality survey, the traffic study, the banning implosions, the banning incinerators, the banning landfills. No one knows these issues better than me because we had incinerators in my ward. I have 9 landfills. All these things are now put into place, and those environmental controls never existed before. Is it perfect? No. Do the developers like it? No, because now they all have to build to the green sustainability policy.
The chair recognizes Alderman Rodriguez.
I initially signed on to this ordinance very, very early. I stuck with this ordinance for months, but in the last waning days, there were concessions, and those concessions were to industry. And those concessions to industry were at the expense of the months of conversations with environmentalists, who at the end of this, not a single one chose to support this ordinance. I think that when we study our history and we look particularly at the federal government and at industrial regulation, we find that whenever we go after industry to be more accountable to community, more engaging, the sky falls.
The chair recognizes Alderman Thompson.
The big difference, I think Alderman Garza touched on, by sending something to the Zoning Board of Appeals doesn't provide any environmental protection.
The chair recognizes Alderman LaSpada.
What was first introduced, the initial draft of this was really exciting, was genuinely transformative. When it was moved from review by the Zoning Board of Appeals to the Plan Commission was a strike that was a tough one to take, in part because our neighbors want to know that there is a deliberative process. It might not always be as fully democratic as they would like, but they want a public deliberative process. When the carve out was made for transportations and logistics and warehousing, that was where I had to move towards being a no vote.
The chair recognizes Chairman Tunney.
I know that we as a city are going to have to maintain strong, clean manufacturing and our logistics as the center of the country when it comes to rail, airports, and freight traffic. So these are not, the cleanest of industries, but they are so essential to keep our economy and our employment there while still improving our environmental standards.
Very interesting. differences in perspective. And one of the key ones that I want to highlight, and I'd like to get your impression of this, Ben, is the difference in perception as to whether the public's concerns will be addressed if the approval goes to the Chicago Plan Commission, which is apparently what this ordinance does in terms of approving new sort of manufacturing facilities in neighborhoods, as opposed to the body called the Zoning Board of Appeals, where evidently the approval was before. And we heard both perspectives, that some, like Alderman Sue Sadlowski Garza of the 10th Ward, feels that at the ZBA, there wasn't enough protection for citizens. Whereas this ordinance calls for now the Chicago Plan Commission, which is a body that approves also things called plan developments, which are colloquially called mega developments, also is the approval body for that. Comments, Ben?
Yes. First of all, Sue Sadlowski Garza, Alderwoman of the 10th Ward in the far southeast side of Chicago, good friend of the show, hasn't been on in a while. Come on, Alderman Garza, come back to the show, okay? Sue Sadlowski Garza, let me put it to you this way, Dave Glowacz. There's no difference, in my humble opinion. This is just my opinion. There's no difference between sending a proposal like General Irons to the Zoning Board of Appeals or sending it to the Plan Commission. And what I'm about to say, I recognize will sound cynical and jaded, skeptical, and you, Dave Glowacz, will say, Ben, you're being unfair to the city of Chicago. Okay, so I'm going to say it anyway, and then you can defend the city of Chicago.
Which is my role.
Yes. But you should hear him, by the way. This is the biggest freaking lefty in the world. But he comes on this show, it's like, I have no opinions.
Journalistic objectivity, I like to call it.
Yeah. Anyway, he used to give me a hard time for voting for Democrats, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying that. Anyway, I'm just going to put this out there, Dave, and you're going to vehemently disagree with me. There's no difference between the ZBA and the Plan Commission. Stop pretending there's a difference. They're both appointed by the mayor. They both generally do whatever the mayor says. They're both waiting for their instructions from the planning department. What do you want us to do, Madam Mayor? Before it was Madam Mayor, it was, what do you want to do, Mayor Rahm? What do you want us to do, Mayor Daley? And they did what they were told. So what difference does it make if you go to the ZBA, the plan? Why don't we just reverse it? Just have them send it to the Board of Education. Speaking of another rubber stamp body, just send it to, I think every month they should send it to a different mayoral. Today it's going to the Park District because it's just going to be the same result. They're going to go, oh, we listened to the people. We listened to our lawyers. We listened to the experts. Science has prevailed, and we think it's a good idea to stick this big, noisy crusher.
Hey, what do you think about this idea to have some of these boards, like the school board or a police accountability board, be selected like people for jury duty? In other words, at random.
That's probably better than what we got now. In fact,
there will be no campaign contributions that base your appointment, right? It'll be just like same for jury duty. You got to show, if you don't show up, you got to have an excuse why, and you're going to decide on relocation of the manufacturing facility on the outside.
If they did criminal trials the way we do zoning approval in the city of Chicago, the jurors would look at the prosecutor and go, what do you want us to do? Okay, what do you want? I remember the Community Development Commission, which is the mayoral appointed entity that oversees TIF deals. I used to go to their meetings all the time until I can't take it anymore. I just said, I can't go anymore. And they would sit there. Well, every now and then it would be a controversial matter. And they would have to make a decision as to whether they approved the TIF deal or whether or not. And sometimes most times it was just like rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp. And they would just spend the whole meeting complimenting the city planners. Your wisdom is just beyond reproach. Can I just take this moment to thank Mayor Daley for just being the wonderful mayor that he is? That was the standard of debate in the Community Development Commission. But every now and then there'd be a contested matter, and people from the community would come in arguing A, and then another group would come in arguing B, and then a CDC Community Development Commission manager would say, "I don't understand why you didn't work this out before, so we could just approve." And I'm like, hello, CDC. That's why you're there. You're supposed to be a quasi-judicial body. That's as objective as Dave Glowacz. You see how he will not reveal how he votes or thinks? That's how you're supposed to be. Well, but instead, no, they're just rubber stamps. So I believe that from now on, they should just rotate it. So next month, the police board should hear on whether they allow general, because it won't matter. They're just going to go, boss, what do you want us to do? Okay.
I like the jury idea myself. I think that's got a lot of, it's got legs.
Let's go. Let's try it. We'll try the jury idea 1 year and then the other. So the point is like this was a done deal. We've talked about General Iron. Oscar Sanchez was on the show, one of the hunger strikers protesting the General Iron facility coming to the south side. This was a very complicated deal. They wanted to open up the north side for a really lucrative development. This gets back to the issue of Raylo. You gotta take restrictions off so people can make the most money. So we were going to fortify, we're going to underwrite the development of the Lincoln Yards property, the Lincoln Yards project on the north side of Chicago with $1.3 billion of your property tax dollars. But to do that, to make it work, they had to get this really noisy, obnoxious crusher operation out of the way. Let's just stick it on the southeast side. No one will care about it. And
but
so
that facility, General Iron, is not in the Lincoln Yards footprint.
That is correct. It's across
door to it.
It's across the river.
No, it's on the same side of the river. It's across the street.
How much would I bet?
I'll bet you any amount. You're talking to who are you talking to? I live 3 miles from there.
This will be
we could bet lunch because
I know I want to bet lunch because I got my second shot.
When are you going back to restaurants?
That's a really tough question.
Well, this will be for lunch. You have to buy.
Yes, no, I definitely want the lunch. There's that pancake house that I have dreams of that I want to go. So I'm about 2 weeks away.
I want to make sure you don't wiggle off the hook here. It is a boat across the street and across the river.
Oh, what are you, John Kerry? I was for the bill before I was against it.
But you're telling me it's not on the same side of the river, but it is. Lincoln Yards straddles the river.
Okay, fair enough. I'm viewing it from the perspective of
All right, we'll call this one a draw. You
okay. All right, we'll just split the cost. All right. So anyway, the point is they had to get that noisy facility out to facilitate the development because you can't have this brand new spanking upscale development right next to this noisy thing. They move it to the south side. All of a sudden, environmentalists protest, residents protest. We're spoiling the narrative. So now they're stuck. Dave Glowacz. And the reality is, in my humble opinion, and this is where you're just going to really disagree with me, I don't believe the city of Chicago, by and large, does a good job of adjudicating. I like that word, adjudicating these kinds of disputes. By and large, the city of Chicago, basically, their attitude is, what do you want, boss? We'll take care of you. That's my attitude, having covered politics in the city since 1981. So anyway, so does it matter if it goes to the ZBA or the Plan Commission? No.
Well, if you can get Alderman Garza on, I would love to hear why she thinks this works better. So, but we can't know that.
Come on, Sue. You know I love you. Okay, come on back to the Ben Rossi Show.
All right. On that note, let's move on, shall we?
Okay.
Dennis, we're going to do income next. So another committee report that the City Council heard on March 24th was the Committee on Economic Capital and Technology Development. And they passed a resolution calling for hearings on a guaranteed income initiative. Now, interestingly, some history here, this grew out of recommendations from a task force created in 2018 by Mayor Rahm Emanuel and your former alderman, whose name is...
Amaya Pawar.
Correct.
I didn't know you were. That was a trivia question for me. It was just a pause, and I go, "Wait, is this a trivia question for me, or is he just having a mental blank as to who my alderman was?" So I quickly had to come to your rescue.
So yeah, this was a recommendation to provide to the poorest Chicagoans some guaranteed monthly income. And according to this resolution that the March 24 council meeting considered, the city would fund a pilot of this program via $5 million. And according to the resolution, quote, through multiple funding sources, including but not limited to President Biden's American Rescue Plan, public-private partnerships, and additional revenue streams, unquote. We're going to start with Committee Chair, 36th Ward Alderman Gilbert Villegas. Let's listen.
The committee recommends passage of the following item. Resolution calling for hearings on implementation of Guaranteed Income Initiative and cash-based programs and policies to help working people and families become more resilient to financial emergencies, for which a hearing was held on the same date. Alderwoman Haddon would like to speak on the resolution.
We're met with a real challenge here, an opportunity to bring Chicago forward, for Chicago to be a leader. Working on a guaranteed income pilot is going to be a direct benefit to our residents. We have had the experience over the last year of facilitating direct payments. We've got other cities in our country who have stood up and showed us the way. We're getting data from some of these first pilots. The City Council with a real opportunity to try something different, and I'd say even a mandate to do things differently.
The chair recognizes Alderman Irvin.
Until we deal with the issue of reparations in the city of Chicago, there's no way in hell we can support direct payments to anybody other than the American descendants of slaves in the city of Chicago. I think these conversations are a slap in the face to people that have suffered great atrocity through time in this country, and to not have either something in parity or something remotely resemblant, something to help us as American descendants of slaves, I think it's something that we really need to think about prior to doing this.
Alderman Haddon.
I wanted to support some of what Chairman Irvin had to say and make sure that our colleagues know that this universal basic income or guaranteed income pilot is not designated for any subset of people. And I think that in conversations with colleagues, there is a lot of synergy and a lot of discussions to have. And we've got this great subcommittee on reparations, and we need to be moving forward together in talking about reparations and talking about guaranteed income as well.
The chair recognizes Alderman Lopez.
To Alderman Irvin's point, yes, reparations is a discussion all to itself. We have a subcommittee for that, and Chairwoman Stephanie Coleman met and has done a great job taking those first steps for Chicago.
The chair recognizes Alderman Cardenas.
I'm flummoxed, to be honest with you, with the resolution. I must be missing something on our finances. We just raised property taxes just last October. People are losing their homes. There's gentrification. There's displacement going on. I don't disagree with the need, though. I don't know how you pay for that, and I don't know how you can tax people from various parts of the city evenly, and I don't know how you can convince them that that's something that is coming out of their pocket to go into somebody else's pocket that's going to make the world a better place. But I stand with my colleague Jason Irvin on this. Priorities, priorities, priorities.
The chair recognizes Alderman Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam President, for the opportunity to speak and to help unflummox those who may feel flummoxed. As the vice chair of the reparations subcommittee, I absolutely respect and agree with Chairman Irving that we need to make sure that there is parity and that the African descendants of slavery are seeing reparations, which is something we formed a subcommittee to talk through. As far as revenue streams, there is the cannabis revenue to have a conversation about. We have the federal funds coming as well. I do believe, as shared by Alderman Lopez, that we have the most impact when those dollars are put directly in the hands of neighbors across the city. Where would we find the money? I don't see that same conversation when we talk about the CPD budget, which is $1.7 billion, or adding federal funds to that budget, when we don't get results when it comes to public safety.
The chair recognizes Alderman Rodriguez.
I do feel like we need to correct the record. There is no sector that we know that stimulates our economy more than working class people, and when we put money in the hands directly of working class folks.
The chair recognizes Alderwoman Michelle Smith.
I think that a federal approach to this issue is much more reasonable and justified. Our city is climbing back from the financial abyss, and I don't think that we should repeat the errors that we made in the 2008 crisis, which was to spend every dime that we could think of. And then when the first recession hit, we had to sell the parking meters and then use up all those assets.
The chair recognizes Alderman Spizzato.
So all this is just discussion about possibly doing something like this, universal basic income. This isn't approving any universal basic income, just about creating a discussion. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, Alderman.
All right, well, thank you. I don't know why we have to vote on this, but okay, now I understand.
It's always nice when Alderman Spizzato gets the last word.
I love Spizzato.
Kind of bring it down for us, right? I just want to add again that if listeners want to hear more Alderman's comments, you can hear them at the Inside Chicago Government podcast episode on this meeting. So I just want to point out, Ben, that a couple of the people we heard talked about a subcommittee that is studying reparations, and that was created by the council in September of 2020, and it got part in the council's Committee on Health and Human Relations. So that's something that's ongoing, but apparently they're not, you heard that the vice chair, Alderman Vasquez, and the chair, Alderman Coleman, who we did not hear from, apparently on the different sides of the issue on whether this universal basic income should get even considered. This isn't to pass it, as Alderman Spizzato said. This is just to talk about it. And we heard Alderman Irvin, Jason Irvin, say that no, we shouldn't even talk about it unless we're having, we're resolving the issue of reparations to descendants of Black slaves. And last thing I'll say before I go to you is that this resolution passed 30-18.
Okay, 30-18 passed. Yeah, this is, Spizzato was great at the end. Let me just clarify this. That there's absolutely nothing at stake. This is purely a symbolic vote. Yes, okay. So this is like a talking point operative. You want to know why this meeting lasts 5 hours? There's moments like this. Every single person has an opportunity to speak out on this issue in such a way as to fortify their standing with their base. So whatever they tailor whatever they're going to say to get people to nod along going, I agree with that. And so as such, I'm sitting here. By the way, thank you so much for doing this, Dave. This is so much fun for me. I'm sitting here going, I agree with that one. And I agree with that one. I was like agreeing with absolutely everybody.
What a tough job it is for aldermen, isn't it?
Except for, I have to say this, Michelle Smith, alderwoman of the 43rd Ward in Lincoln Park.
What's a federal response?
Vehemently disagree with something you said. Your interpretation of what led to the parking meters sale. I'm sorry.
I could not leave that one out.
I mean, somehow or other, when she's done explaining why Mayor Daley thought it was a good idea to sell the parking meters, it was because he was doing his fiduciary responsibility to pay the bills, as opposed to an inside deal benefiting a bunch of inside players, and the dummies of Chicago go along with it. By the way,
where was she when that 2008? Like, she wasn't an alderman then. Was she a prosecutor at that point?
I don't know. She was elected, I want to say, in 2015. I remember Michelle Smith. She may have been a federal prosecutor. I don't know, to answer your question. I remember, oh my God, Nick Spizzato. It's coming back. It's a flood of memories. Nick Spizzato convened a meeting at a pizza parlor on the northwest side of Chicago in approximately, don't quote me on the exact date, but I believe it was around 2007, thereabouts. And they invited me, David, your humble little servant here, to come speak to these wannabe aldermen. There was all these people who were wanting to run for office, running to run for aldermen, had either run once and lost, and we're going to run again, or we're running for the first time. And in that room was Nick Spizzato. Well, he convened the meeting. Michelle Smith was there. This is before she ran in the 43rd Ward. And they asked me to come talk about TIFs. It's a very important issue. God bless you, Nick Spizzato. To come talk to me.
What year was that?
Yeah, I'm so old, and there's been so many years. I want to say 2007. I'll bet Nick Spizzato. I'll bet you're wrong. If he was
so this
there.
place is Michelle Smith in Chicago.
Yes. Oh my God, she was in Chicago.
Where is the narrative that she had about the parking meter deal come from?
The mayor's office. That was a creation of Mayor Daley.
Hey, did you notice what I'm wearing?
Oh my God. Oh, folks, this is an inside joke. Mayor Daley's bicycling ambassadors. I used to tease the bicycling community of the city of Chicago mercilessly. And this is where Dave Glowacz would stand up for his fellow cyclists. I would say the biggest sellouts to Mayor Daley's city, the way he governs Chicago, are bicyclists, part of the organized bicycling community, because Daley put in a bike lane, and just like that, bicyclists everywhere go, what a wonderful mayor. He cares about me. And then he would have a bike to drive. Remember that one, Dave? Mayor Daley, don't criticize him.
Hey, here's a trivia question. You know who created the Mayor Daley's Bicycling Ambassadors program?
Dave Glowacz.
Well, I guess I got to buy you lunch.
Dave Glowacz was a powerful player in the Daley years. Kind of ran. Things wouldn't go. You know what? You know who would decide where crushers went? It wasn't the ZBA. It wasn't the Plan Commission. It was Dave Glowacz.
I think we should move on.
But yeah, so I enjoyed that riff, except come on, Michelle Smith. You can do better than that. You know, that was an inside deal.
Well,
it wasn't about paying the
that
bills.
segment caused you to want to sympathize with both sides. Well, if you think that one can make your head explode, what you're going to hear now is just classic in that way. Dennis, we're going to do India next. So normally at the end of a city council meeting, there's a pro forma, there's a bunch of things they do real quick. And one of them is the mayor calls for unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? And the person that she's been asking that of recently is Alderman Greg Mitchell to be sort of the keeper of unfinished business. Now, normally there's none, but not this time. Unfinished was a resolution by 49th Ward Alderwoman Maria Haddon, from whom we just heard, calling for condemnation of violence in India. And this unfinished business resulted in roughly a half hour of comment by, I counted 16 aldermen, but we're not going to hear from all of them. I edited it down to sort of a medley of some, and let's listen.
I'm aware of one item of unfinished business. It is a substitute resolution concerning the recognition of India's 74th anniversary of Independence Day and a call for condemnation of violence against certain castes and faith groups. I defer to Alderman Haddon.
For months now, we've heard from public commenters about this resolution celebrating India's democracy. I introduced the original non-binding resolution in July. After hearing concerns from the Indian government, my office, working with the Chicago Coalition for Human Rights in India, agreed to make some changes out of consideration for those concerns. Our substitute resolution passed committee unanimously in February. I've also met with many people organizing the opposition to this non-binding resolution over the last couple of months. The main argument that they've brought to me as to why I should withdraw this resolution was that bringing up these issues causes conflict or disharmony here.
Alderman Lopez.
My office, as I'm sure many of yours, have received thousands of people communicating with us overwhelmingly in opposition to this resolution.
Alderman Cardenas.
Think of this. If we take this on, why not take on the Chinese Uyghur ethnic cleansing conflict debate? Why not deal with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? How about Boko Haram in Nigeria and the exploitation of women and the raping of women and pillaging of villages? And we go on and on.
Alderman Taliaferro.
Is the law department available to opine as to the effects of a no vote or an abstention of vote in comparison to those two as an outcome on a favorable vote?
I'm advised by the parliamentarian, and we remind members that if you are present, you are required to vote yes or no. There is no voting present. Alderman Burnett.
I had the opportunity to travel to India several years ago, and the only thing they can talk about to us is, why is your president involved in India? Why are they involved with Kashmir? Why are they involved with us fighting our brothers or our brothers and us not agreeing with each other? They were like, this is not your business. And, we was like dumbfounded because we didn't know what they were talking about.
Alderman LaSpada.
This is about our voices. This is about our solidarity. Solidarity never says we should stay out of this. Solidarity says there is oppression and injustice and intolerance happening, and we stand on the side of the oppressed.
Alderwoman Rodriguez Sanchez.
Leadership is about making decisions. It's about taking positions. And the idea that because we're in city council in Chicago and we're not in India, and we cannot take a position on an issue of justice is very problematic to me.
Alderman David Moore.
When a very good friend of mine who I've known for years, who I know has a heart of gold, asked me not to vote for this, I had to give him a call and understand why. When he began to break this down to me, it was so complex that I needed to say, I need a subject matter hearing on this, because I don't want to be on the wrong side of the issue here. And since we cannot abstain, we have to be strong enough to take a position. And because he's someone that I trust, who's a voice of passion that I've always trusted in the Indian community, and he asked me not to support this, I have to say no, because I don't have enough information to say yes to go against somebody that I trust.
Profiles encourage, Ben.
Yes, we've talked about this a lot. Rahman Hussain, regular guest on the Ben Joravsky Show every Friday in the Ben Joravsky Show. Rahman Hussain, editor columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times. I think the first writer in Chicago to deal with this in a column. We've talked about it several times on the show. She feels very passionately about this issue. She's a Muslim American, and this gets into the repression in India of Muslims by Hindus in the Modi government. And then it gets complicated, because then you can raise the subject of the issue of repression of Hindus in Pakistan. That's probably what David Moore heard. And I kind of sympathize with Alderman Dave Glowacz. I am sympathetic with Alderman on this point, because it is a complicated situation. It involves a part of the world that most of them know nothing about. I know very little about it. Rahman Hussain has educated me a lot coming on this show. And you're trying to take the deep dive. There's people who feel passionately about this stuff on both sides, and they're going to come at you and tell you, no, don't listen to Rahman Hussain. Or they're going to tell you, yes, listen to Rahman Hussain. Because you're an alderman.
We heard Alderman Lopez say that they got thousands of contacts on it.
Yeah, there was a great article in the Reader. I urge everybody to check that article out about the proliferation of people from outside of Chicago weighing in on this. The people from Indiana and people from the suburbs, about this resolution. And I don't know which alderman it was that made the comparison to the Israeli-Palestinian.
Cardenas.
Because absolutely right. If they had a resolution defending Palestinian human rights, there would be an outcry from supporters of Israel. They'd be getting phone calls. They'd be reviewing the entire history of the Middle Eastern disputes, wars going back to 1948. The division of the land by the British. I mean, and you're an alderman. You're like, I did not sign up for foreign affairs. And so Neil Steinberg wrote a column ripping the alderman. It was a funny column. I got to admit, there were some funny lines. But I feel sorry for him.
I think Alderman Moore made a good point that he wants his vote to count. And as we heard, which is something that I don't know that I actually ever thought before, or maybe I knew it, but never consciously acknowledged it, is that city council members can't abstain from a vote if they're there. They got to vote yes or no.
But they've been known to sneak out. Sneak out of their own.
What they do is, they'll, which is easier in the age of video conference, right? They can just they can shut down their camera and you don't know what the heck's going on.
By the way, was it my imagination or was there the sound of a flushing toilet?
The beginning of George Cardenas.
I'm like, hello, somebody just flushed the toilet. Come on, guys.
He doesn't know he's going to be called.
Anyway, but I would say this. Rahman Hussain has so passionately talked about this issue that I would have, who was it? Oh, David Moore said his friend told him passionately why you should vote no. I've heard Rahman Hussain talk about the issue and what it means to her. I would have voted yes. I'm just going to say that. And to a large degree, because Rahman Hussain is just such a powerful job of articulating why a yes vote would be necessary. I don't say I'm any smarter or more courageous than David Moore, who voted no on this particular issue. I don't say I'm a better person than, I don't know, I can't think of anybody. Ray Lopez, I don't know, did he vote no? I don't say that. I'm just saying that
we rely on people we trust to
yes.
help inform us about things that we don't know a lot about. You know, it's
well
reasonable.
Put. Well put.
Well put. Last thing is what happened with this resolution is it didn't immediately go to a vote. Something else happened. Dennis, we're going to do quorum last. Ben, this is a trivia question. What number of city council members constitute a quorum for having a vote?
God, I should know this. Wait, time out. Hold it.
It's simple.
Oh, 20%.
No, simpler than that.
Oh, none.
Majority.
Say that again?
A majority, 26.
Okay.
50 city council members, majority, according to the city council's rules and regulations.
Dennis, when we drop this podcast, edit out the part where you didn't know and then put this in. A simple majority, Dave. It's a simple majority. Everybody knows that.
It's kind of like, abstaining. Like, who knew that, right? Well, here's what happened after that discussion we just heard. Let's listen.
Alderman Spizzato.
I don't mean to pick a fight with you, Mayor, but I don't see how, if somebody doesn't vote, that would count as a yes or a no, because people are out of this meeting by now. So people have already left. If you see them there and they're not saying nothing, that's one thing. But if they're not here, if it ends up being 21-19, one way or another, and 10 people didn't vote, I don't think the 21 carries because you didn't get enough votes.
In light of Alderman Spizzato's last comments, I feel compelled to remind the council of the following. Rule 14, the first paragraph says, every member who shall be present when a question is slated from the chair shall vote thereon unless excused by the council. There is no provision in the city council rules for voting present or being in your seat and remaining silent. Those are your rules. Alderman Lopez.
In recognizing that there are only 43 members on the Zoom call now, I'd like to call quorum before we go to the roll.
With due respect, I would urge you to withdraw your motion for a quorum. I can see the members of the body. A vast majority of the members are logged on. I don't believe, based upon looking at the number of people that are logged on to this call, that a quorum call is necessary. But again, if you want to put your colleagues through a quorum call followed by a roll call, then by all means, sir. What is your pleasure, sir?
Quorum call, please.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
So what happened was they did two separate roll calls. The first one showed there were 44 aldermen present, which the mayor said she could see because she's got, I think, as I mentioned in the past, this huge screen that shows all the aldermen on it. And the second roll call was the vote on the resolution, which failed 18-26. So a little bit of like Alderman Lopez, not sure why he did that.
Who knows? We'll have to bring him on and ask him. But that's one of my, what is your pleasure, sir? That's the most hostile, nice thing I've ever heard. She calls him sir. What is your pleasure? But it's done in such a way to let the world know I cannot stand this man. I can't stand Raylo.
The courtesy of Robert's rules.
And then, she knows. You got to give Raylo credit. These guys like mastered the rule book. Of course, there's probably some lawyer leaning into Lori Lightfoot's here. But wait, Rule 14, as you know. Wow, man. Whenever they go to the Robert's Rules, Rule 14 of the City Council rules says this. I got to give her credit.
I got to retract what I just said. Thinking about it.
Yes.
The alderman, as far as I know, the mayor is the only person in that meeting who has the technical capability to see all the other participants. I'm not sure of that. Like, I don't know if they're set up like each alderman can see all 51 other screens, if they had a screen big enough. So, if you're just Ray Lopez sitting there on your laptop, you don't know if, how many have, because it's 5 hours into the meeting at this point.
Yeah. You know what? It's 5 miles. It's like, what do they say? In for nickel, in for a dime. You're in for 5 hours of a meeting. It's not the end of the world to do a quorum call.
It's not as if you had to go downtown either.
No. So, right, you're just at home anyway, and some people are on the toilet, apparently.
Well, that's all I got, Ben.
You know what? Don't say all I got. That was, but studio audience, give it up. There we go. They're on their feet.
They're flush with satisfaction.
Oh, he's got a million of them. Not only is he a bike rider and a City Hall correspondent, he's got a million jokes.
My jokes are tanking now.
So Dave Glowacz, before you head out the door, tell folks where they can follow all your other great work. And here's some more of your insights regarding Chicago government.
Well, find some of those at a website called Inside Chicago Government. That's CHIGOV.com. If you're on Facebook, you can go to facebook.com/InsideGov. That's GOV. And on Twitter at CHIGOVT.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dave. That was outstanding. As always, Dave Glowacz with his bits that he plays from the Chicago City Council. And that medley at the end was quite a riff to end. It's like the fireworks, the grand finale of the fireworks on the 4th of July.
Like a White Sox game.
Like a White Sox game. Go Sox, go. Anyway, Dave Glowacz, thank you very much. And that is our show for today. I want to thank Dave Glowacz again for doing an outstanding job. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, without whom this...
We got to wish a happy birthday to somebody.
Ooh.
You know who?
No.
Oh, some friend you are. Happy birthday to Monroe Anderson.
Oh, wasn't that yesterday?
Well, I mean, we still didn't say it.
Hold on. He's still working on that story, lady. He had to write a book. Ben, I have to write a book. I can't come on the show. He's busy writing. You interrupted his writing with that happy birthday greeting, okay? The poor guy is hard at work.
Sorry, Monroe, focus.
Focus, Monroe. Anyway, he's going to finish that book sooner or later. Yes, happy belated birthday, because I believe it was yet. I'm pretty sure. I'm 99.9% sure it was yesterday. So anyway, happy birthday, Monroe. And again, where was I? Oh, yes. The man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, without whom the show be possible. And as Ray Lopez and Mayor Lightfoot will tell you, back home in Alton, they call him Dr. D. Give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.